It's April 6th, and the strange side of history awaits. Today, we have soldiers glowing in the darkness, an expedition clouded in doubt, and a king who survived wars, but not a small wound. Let's begin. On April 6, 1864, the forests along the Tennessee River were trembling with the sound of war. By the evening, on the first day of the Battle of Shiloh, the ground was covered in the wounded. Tens of thousands of men had fallen, Union and Confederation alike, left where they dropped, scattered through the mud, trees, and in shallow pools of rainwater. Then a storm came. It was cold and relentless, and the downpour soaked the battlefield, turning it into a swamp. The wounded couldn't move, some were too weak, others pinned beneath bodies, laying there in the freezing rain, calling out in the darkness. Hours would pass and no rescue would come. Some men waited nearly 2 full days, shivering, bleeding, and slowly slipping towards death. But as night fell, something strange began to happen. In the darkness, a faint blue glow appeared. At first, it was barely visible. Wounds that were open and raw began to emit a soft, ghostly light. Survivors would later describe it as something almost otherworldly, as if the dying were marked. They called it an angel glow, and for years no one could explain it. But over a century later, scientists uncovered the truth. In the cold-soaked conditions, the soldiers' bodies dropped into hypothermia, creating the perfect environment for a rare bioluminescent bacteria called Photorhabdus luminescens. It glowed, and somehow it also killed deadly infections. So those who glowed lived. If you saw your wounds glowing in the dark, would you think it's a miracle or something far worse? On April 6, 1909, somewhere on the shifting sheet of the Arctic ice, a small group of men prepared for what they believed would be the final push to the top of the world. At its center was Robin Parry, a man who had spent a decade chasing a single point on the map, 90 degrees north. With him was Matthew Henson and 4 Inuit guides, moving silently across the frozen ocean that never stayed still. There were no landmarks, no roads, only endless white, and a constant risk that the ice beneath them would split apart without any warning. Parry wrote the words, "The pole at last." But here's where the story turns. Almost immediately, another explorer, Frederick Cook, claimed he'd reached the pole a year earlier. And what followed wasn't celebration, it was a quiet war of accusations, ruined reputations, and doubt. Decades later, when Parry's private records were finally re-examined, something unsettling emerged. His navigations didn't quite add up. His final dash was over 130 nautical miles in just 5 days, which seemed almost impossible. Modern experts began to ask a chilling question. Did they actually even arrive? Or were they standing miles away, believing they had reached the Earth's northernmost point? Some studies suggest they came within a few miles, others many as 60 miles short. Out there, in the endless Arctic silence, there's no markers, no proof, and no witnesses. So, it is a possibility one of history's greatest achievements was never truly completed. On April 6th, in the year 1119, Richard the Lionheart took his last breath. He was a feared warrior across continents and a man who had survived crusades, sieges, and countless battles. He was not struck down by a glorious combat, but by a single, quiet shot from the wall of a minor castle. Days earlier, he was walking the perimeter without armor, inspecting its defenses, and a crossbow bolt flew in from the shadows. It struck his shoulder. The wound seemed small and survivable, but the arrow was poorly removed, and something was left behind. In the days that followed, the flesh began to rot. Infection silently spread through his body, turning the king into something fragile. Legends say the man who fired the shot was just a boy, seeking revenge for his family, who was lost to Richard's campaign. But when the king learned this, he did something unexpected. He forgave him and ordered him free. But after Richard's death, his captain ignored the king's final command, and the boy was brutally executed. Even in death, the story grew stranger. Richard's body was divided, his entrails buried where he fell, his heart was sent away, and the rest of him laid beside his father. He was a king scattered across the land he once ruled. Another day, another strange bite from history. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your next eerie dose is just a day away.